Hello, and welcome to First Geek 411's book club. Tonight we will be discussing Heir to the Empire. Yay!
Yay.
But before we get into that, you can find us on all the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as OneGeek411. Come chat with us on our Discord server. Shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Watch live on our Twitch every Monday night at 6:45 Mountain Time and find our videos over on YouTube and check out our Redbubble store. I'm Shanine, and with me I have Cameron,
Hello, hello.
Gengar himself.
Yes, I super love this shirt. Um, Hawaiian vibes, but also spoopy.
Very fashion.
Yeah, because never forget the reason for the season, and that's pumpkin spice because it's fall.
Fall, y'all. Now for something a little spicy. Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn. The Empire has been defeated, but is still hanging around the galaxy, while the New Republic tries to establish its newly grasped power on shaky ground. Grand Admiral Thrawn puts a series of seemingly small attacks into place to begin his plan to thwart the New Republic, while tracking down and utilizing a man who claims to be a Jedi and attempting to capture Luke Skywalker. Leia attempts to balance strengthening her Jedi powers with her busy political ambassador life and avoid kidnapping attempts by a mysterious alien race. Luke attempts to hunt down what he thinks is another Jedi and comes face to face with someone who wants him dead. And Han Solo just tries to keep this old bucket of bolts flying.
Han Solo just doing Han Solo things. Like, living his best life.
Yes. All right, there will be no Ahsoka spoilers, but maybe spoilers for all other Star Wars things. So,
yeah. And with that, that's part of the reason we wanted to read this, of course. Promo for Ahsoka featuring Thrawn as a major part, and so, but we definitely don't want to ruin it for others or ourselves as things are still being watched, and we're as of time of recording 3 episodes in, so
or 0 if you have.
Yeah, or 0, yes.
All right. But what is your 3-word review of Heir to the Empire?
A fun introduction. What about you?
I think fun, space, action. So, what is your past experience with Star Wars and specifically Thrawn?
I think I've told the story on the podcast before. I don't remember watching Star Wars. I just remember knowing the story of Star Wars. And we wore out the VHS of The Empire Strikes Back, which I still put as one of my favorite movies of all time. And so really always grew up around Star Wars. It was my dad's a massive geek. We went to go see all the premieres and stuff like that. Well, not the premieres. We went to go see all of the movies. And yeah, just kind of have always grown up around it. In general, less familiar with Thrawn himself. I've watched a little bit of Rebels while Deanna was watching it. But by no means seen all of that series, and so I mostly know about Thrawn in passing, and from the story so far videos getting ready for Ahsoka.
Yeah, for me, I don't know, I think I still consider myself a Star Wars newbie. I first watched them when I was 17, which was very late to the game. And I don't know, been more of a casual fan since then, I think. Saw all the new ones in theaters. But yeah. And then Thrawn specifically, I don't think I have any like actual experience with him, but I'm definitely aware of him. I think I was first recommended this series in particular. I guess I did not mention this is the first in the Thrawn trilogy.
The first in the first Thrawn trilogy.
Yeah.
Just to make it more confusing.
Yep, love it. By the same author.
By the same author, yeah. This guy's just out here writing Thrawn books. Like,
yes, I was recommended the first Thrawn trilogy, I think by a few people, but definitely Mike from Geek at Arms for sure was one of them. And so I've been kind of peripherally aware of Thrawn, basically what he looks like, and that he is a super scary Grand Admiral. Just very tactical and scary. Yeah, so the name drop at the end of whichever
Mando season 2?
Is it? Was it?
Is it?
How many seasons of Mando are there?
The third season of Mando just happened.
So that one. It was like whichever show just ended.
Okay.
And then Ahsoka was next.
Was it in Andor? Regardless, we're moving on. I'll Google.
So there was the name drop, and I was like, very excited, very shocked. I don't know. You always expect them to bring back Palpatine, but you don't expect them to bring in new cool characters.
Yeah.
So
Palpatine somehow always returns. To quote Screen Crush.
So yeah, I was excited to read this to learn more about what everyone has said is such a cool character.
Okay. So I Googled. Grand Admiral Thrawn is mentioned in The Mandalorian chapter 13. And then comes up again at the end in chapter 23, The Spies. So it is both right. Good job, us. So.
Nice. All right. Did you have a favorite character in the book? And did the book change how you view any Star Wars characters?
I won't necessarily say it changed anything. I feel like this is not to get too like crazy Star Wars stuff, but like I feel like this book and the very limited legends that I've read tend to play things very safe with the characters. And like I kind of referenced this with Han Solo at the beginning. Like I think this is the most Han Solo's ever been. I feel like this is the most Leia's ever been, the most Luke Skywalker's ever been. It's kind of the like these are what the characters are. You know them because it is this. They're not necessarily like doing anything crazy with them, which isn't like inherently a bad thing. But yeah, kind of through that, I'll say no, not really. There isn't really anything here that I think challenges or pushes the characters into like growth that is that different or unexpected. It reinforces that I like Han Solo. Like, and like that the strength of that core cast of characters is fantastic. In terms of favorite character, and this is kind of the one I don't know well as well. I liked Mara Jade. Uh, I like that there's a lot going on with her that even the people in the world are not privy to. And so we kind of all find out together. That's super cool. But yeah, other than that, cool characters are cool. Like, they've been cool since A New Hope. Like, what about you?
Yeah, I think being more of a casual fan, there were maybe some characters that I didn't know as well that I feel like I got to know a bit better reading this book. I think like Chewie is one of those
Mm-hmm.
characters where I feel like we got a little more like specific Chewie time and like
Yeah.
going to his planet and things, seeing him in his own environment was like very cool. And yeah, other than that, I very much enjoyed Han Solo just because Han Soloing, and he was very much Han Solo in this book. I could hear Harrison Ford every
Mm-hmm.
time I read a Han line. It's like, yep, that's him. Um, I think it might have also changed the way I view Lando a little bit. He's very much like devil may care, suave, and I feel like we got a little more, I don't know, him like trusting Luke right at the end
Mm-hmm.
and like risking it on Luke. I was like, okay,
Yeah. Yeah, I will
maybe you
say,
do
kind of
have.
going back to what I said, I did like what they did with Lando. I feel like they did give him some good growth, and I like the version of Lando that is like the super smart businessman that like pretends to be this rogue, and he's actually just like this like pencil pusher that's like solving all of these problems. Like, I kind of love that. Like, he's like, yeah, we got this mining operation, we got to keep it afloat, we got to build these ships. Like, I kind of like that version of like, again, savvy businessman Lando.
Mhm. Yeah, and I agree with you as well. Mara Jade was a cool character, and I also liked Card. He was just interesting to me. I
Mm-hmm.
find the the more neutral parties that are trying to stay neutral in a very like black and white
Mm-hmm.
divided galaxy
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, I agree. We even get some of that in like a really cool way towards the end, where like Thrawn's like, "Oh, they clearly double crossed us. We'll deal with that later." Like, yeah, or clearly they did not share what was actually going on. That kind of stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. And speaking of Thrawn, what did you think of his character?
I think it's a good introduction to him. Um, Obviously, there's a lot more story going on. This is by no means like intended to be a like closed view of Thrawn, uh, or like a closed depiction of him. And again, I think it's a good introduction. I have a question, but first I want to hear what you think.
I really enjoyed Thrawn. I think, yeah, having never experienced his character like in any form of media before, it was really cool getting to getting to know his character and I guess kind of how slowly we got to know him throughout the
Mm-hmm.
book. Because it's like, yeah, he's like a good tactician. He's very thoughtful. He doesn't approach things like other Empire people have approached things in the past that people are used to. He's very different from Darth Vader. and there was a lot of things about him that I really liked. And then he like had this one moment where he snapped, but like not snapping, losing it, like very calculated snapping. And it felt very Kingpin to me. And I love Kingpin as a villain as well. So, like, yes, I like it.
Okay. So my question, because I feel like this is a huge challenge for writing this type of character. Do you think that Timothy successfully pulled off making Thrawn seem smart without making everyone else seem dumb?
I think yes. Because, like, yes, there were some things that Thrawn would figure out that other people are like, okay, I don't know how you got there, but, like, you're the boss. Then there was other times that he'd, like, say something and then people would realize, like, oh, like, he made this connection. That's wild. Like, I can't believe he thought of that, but he's so right. So I think he wasn't like, I don't know, just like magically knowing everything because he's Thrawn and he has to figure it out. But I think it was believable for me. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it grew on me. And maybe it's because we just like came off of Princess Bride. So I'm viewing him as like Vicini over here of like, I'm the smartest man in the room because I'm going to tell everyone I'm the smartest man in the room, and then get got. But yeah, it really grew on me. I feel like when it comes to villains, there's the tendency to either make them powerful physically, Kylo Ren, Darth Vader, the Emperor, or make them like mentally menacing. And I feel for a lot of things the trope is very much, oh, they're the smartest person in the room because everyone else is super dumb. And that was kind of how I felt going into this with Thrawn and with the first, like, say the first third of the book. I forget the name of his like number 2, but like this clearly incompetent number 2, like the most like, yes, you are the reason the Empire fell kind of dude. And like, I feel like Thrawn's greatest strength is that he's not actually that smart. He just isn't like by the books. Like they kind of hit on this early on where it's like, oh, well, people don't normally do these jump to light speeds this close because it's difficult, but Thrawn made us practice and now it's second nature. And like the first time that like we got that, I was just like, okay, so everyone else is incompetent. Like clearly this is a really good strategy. It was just not worth it to do it, which is super Empire. But then like by the end, or even like by the end of that section, there's like a time where Thrawn is like, oh, we're going to do this thing, like this maneuver. Why? Because we know that they can't handle it. And he's like, because it's going to work. That's why we're doing it. And like, and it's not even anything like super crazy. It's just like, this isn't what they expect. So it's what we're going to do. And we won. Like, oh, wow, surprise. Like, but I feel like by the end, we, especially with, it's Card, right? I did the audiobook, so I never actually saw anyone's name. And so like with him, like you get someone that isn't presented as smart as Thrawn, but is still very intelligent. And like you can put like Han and Leia in this category as well. They're by no means like brilliant tacticians, but they are very smart and intuitive. And I feel like by the time that we were getting to the end of it, where we're kind of getting them all like kind of around each other and like all of the plans intersecting. It's like, okay, yeah, I can really believe that like Thrawn is out here holding his own against these people versus just, again, the Empire that was incompetent. So.
Yep.
I
think.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna share a quote from like page 10. So like very early on. I think it's like the first scene with Thrawn. Where his captain is just like in the room where Thrawn has all the art displayed. And he says, "Learn about art, Captain. When you understand a species' art, you understand that species." And I think that's being like our very first introduction to Thrawn is like very perfect. I think it just shows how like different he is from like everyone else in the Empire, basically, and how like thoughtful and observant, I guess, and like why he's able to think about things differently.
Yeah. In chat, Gameboy Nikolai dropped us a follow and says, I think I felt like Outbound Flight did a slightly better job portraying Thrawn as a genius than this trilogy did. But watching him use everything handed to him in clever ways was really fun. Yeah, then clarifies Talon Card, Karrde. Yeah, I thought it was card as in card trick. And I was like, this is like the least Star Wars name ever. But if we're going to spell it like that, that makes more sense. That explains why I couldn't figure out who this person was. Because I was like looking through the summary and I was like, who was this? It's weird that this is like not mentioned. But and so what's up, Locke? Yeah. And so that's one of the things that they keep for Thrawn in Rebels, like his interest in art. And I love that as like a villain trope of like, he's smart because he's researched. Like he's not like, and again, I think he stays away from being like the book smart villain, like the book smart mastermind. I think that was a really cool way of like, again, giving him like insight into a culture of just like, hey, what they feel is valuable enough to portray as art helps you understand who they are. Like, surprise. Again, like that's not like a revolutionary thought, but like, again, I just like that Thrawn kind of excels as being smart just because he doesn't think the way the Empire thinks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was another really like Kingpin type moment for me too. I'm like, he's just civilized. He just knows culture. And yeah, I also love a villain that I don't necessarily disagree about everything with. Like, you know what? He's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Thrawn is also like the least evil villain. Like he's not out here like, I mean, obviously he's part of the Empire, which, you know, like space Nazis, but like as far as like villains go, he's not out here like, oh, let's murder kids. He's like, hey, we need to make this look like an attack, but try to avoid damaging things too badly. Like he literally like kind of preserves one of the places that they attack to make a point. Like he's much more like big picture than just coming in and like, oh yeah, give me all that power. Like the Emperor. There we go.
Any standout moments?
You mentioned the standoff at the end. I really liked that scene. I enjoyed that. Again, they're like, hey, this looks like a great place for an ambush. But, oh, we don't want them to ambush them here. How do we communicate this? And again, kind of hitting that. Like, again, Luke is by no means like a tactical genius, but like figures out a very quick solution of like, okay, if this is clearly where the ambush is, that means clearly Lando is here, which means C-3PO is probably here, which means like, and like, how do you solve this problem in the least amount of time? Like, I really liked that. And then I really liked a lot of the in the woods with Mara Jade stuff. Kind of referencing that of like, and kind of as our newest character. I really enjoyed a lot of the like uneasy truce and that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. I briefly mentioned before the Thrawn snapping moment, where I can't remember, was it an error or a mistake? Either way, it was bad. Oh yeah, anyone can make an error, but that error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. So yeah, like one of his, whoever's his ensign, made a mistake by not training someone properly to, this was the tractor beam thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had Luke and then they lost him and then accidentally tractor beamed some torpedoes into their ship. And the guy who was handling the tractor beam was apparently not trained well enough by the ensign, and that was the ensign's mistake. And Thrawn corrected that mistake by killing the guy in charge of the tractor beam. And I was like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah.
It's like, there, I fixed it. And I'm like,
yeah,
what? Such a good villain moment.
Yeah. And like, even like through that, like he still feels like calculating. Like this isn't like, I mean, it's very cold-blooded, but this isn't like cold-blooded in the sense of like, I hate you. This is cold-blooded in the sense of we can't handle these mistakes. You're gone. Like it's this or we jettison you into space kind of thing. Like,
yeah, it's not like a bloodthirsty rage. It's like very calculated. Well, you tried. You're off the team.
Yeah.
Permanently. And yeah, I think, again, just another standout everything was their time on is Kashyyyk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kashyyyk. I'm reading this, like you got the benefit of the audiobook, and I'm reading this and I'm like, I don't think I'm pronouncing anything correctly, but it's how I'm pronouncing it. Yeah, Kashyyyk was cool.
Yeah. Doing the audiobook, there's fantastic voices. 10 out of 10. Definitely recommend. Especially the voice that they do for Han is fantastic. It's very like Harrison Ford. And so
nice. Maybe book 2.
Yeah.
I'll do the audiobook.
Yeah, definitely recommend. It was a much better audiobook choice than Beard and Luthien. definitely made a better choice this time than I did for that book club. But
believe that. Any dislikes?
I think the beginning of the book is just slow. Like, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like the whole like first Leia, Han, Luke going to this planet is just so obvious a trap is gonna get sprung, and it's like, yes, let's go, we'll get there. Like, I feel like that section kind of drags on a bit. There's also a bit of the, clearly we need to just let Leia train as a Jedi. Like, obviously. Like, again, that's one of the, like, is everyone else incompetent things? Like, there's got to be other delegates somewhere that can handle this stuff that are not Leia, so she can spend 6 months or something to get the basics of being a Jedi down. Like, and so that, like, again, I think makes sense in the world and as a setting. I dislike that people are not able to figure that out. But again, that's not a knock on like the specific storytelling. That's more of a knock on the world itself. But
Admiral Akbar.
Oh, it's a trap.
What a guy.
What a guy. Classic Akbar. That does remind me, like, were we supposed to feel sorry for Akbar? Like,
guess.
I think that's what it was trying to do. Because, like, especially like at the end, like we're on his ship for a part of it too, I think. Like, we're on Home One. And it's like, it seemed like at the end when Akbar is like, gets arrested for treason, we're supposed to be like, "Ah, poor guy." But it was just like, okay. Was it a trap the whole time? Maybe. I mean, I like Akbar for like what we see him in, but like, sure. I felt like I was not emotionally invested in the outcome of his story.
Not at all. Yeah. Like Luke, Leia, and Han are very like, he has to be our leader. He's our friend. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, what if this other guy has some points though?
Yeah. Like, again, kind of going back to the Thrawn versus his number 2 thing of like, what if we just didn't do it the same way we've always done it? Like, again, I kind of feel like we're supposed to feel for Akbar, and I just like kind of just don't.
I think I also ran into a bit of a problem with that because I briefly was part of a Star Wars RPG campaign, and I played a Bothan. So when a Bothan showed up, I was like really excited because I knew what it was. And then I was like, oh, we're not supposed to like him. I kind of do though.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, I was just like super confused by that. I think there was some other book club that we did. Now I can't remember what it was. Where like there was that same type of thing where like there's like supposed to be like this emotional beat at the end, and I'm like, am I heartless or did I just like miss like the desire to care about this character? Like,
heartless, clearly.
Heartless.
I don't know. Politics. All right. Oh, I didn't say my dislikes yet, did I?
Nope.
I think there could have been more like character arc things going on. There's like a lot of action and things and solving mysteries and stuff, but there wasn't a whole lot like going on internally.
Yeah.
Maybe not that Star Wars is necessarily known for, but it is.
Yeah.
I've cried at Star Wars.
Yeah.
There could have been more.
Yeah. And for me, I think that falls into the like, they played it safe. Like, I think that's kind of the vibe of like, they're not really pushing the characters anywhere. They're not really like we get a shout out to Wedge like showing up at the end of this. It's just like it feels almost like that we have to hit the names of the characters that we know. And like when you're trying to cram in all of the people, it's hard to actually like have character arcs for a lot of them. It's like it kind of went more Justice League, less Avengers.
Yeah. I don't know. They didn't even necessarily have to have like intense character arcs for everyone, but they started the book with Luke and talking about him being like depressed and things. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, what an interesting thing to be exploring. And then we never mentioned it ever again.
Yeah, Leia's kind of like, yeah, I can feel that you're struggling with something. He's like, yep. Cool.
Good chat. Yeah, so I feel like we dropped the ball a little bit there, but
Nick says a lot of the books can suffer from that, sadly. I feel like it's like kind of the nature of writing licensed stories. Like, you're writing a story that is not your own, and like it kind of, you need to fit within the established canon. Like, you can't even though like the legend stuff was never like fully canon, from my understanding. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong there. Uh, like they're never like directly acknowledged. But like I feel like that's kind of that struggle of like the character has to be written this way because it's not my character, and like you can't really push them with anything. And again, I don't necessarily think that's a knock on Zahn. I think he did a great job, but I feel like that's part of the struggle. Nick says Lucas apparently hated Mara. Well, George, I disagree. From the one book that I've read that she's in, but like,
all right, what did you think of the framework of the novel, kind of jumping between characters and groups?
it was good. I kind of like how we are always staying in like the linear story. It's kind of just from like whose perspective are we getting this scene from? Especially once we get towards the end and like all of the characters start converging on like specific locations. So I liked it. I feel like it's always like 6 of this, a half dozen of another, where it's like I would kind of like if we had focused in on 1 or 2 characters rather than having to try to feel like we had to cover everyone. But at the same time, if we'd focused in on 1 or 2 of those characters and I didn't like the way that they were characterized, I would be over here saying the opposite. And so, like I don't necessarily have a right or wrong answer there, but I think it was done well for what it was. And I do like that we got to check in with everybody from like the main crew.
Yeah, I think I largely agree with you. I also liked that it was like following a linear time flow of everything. Like they obviously had a lot of overlapping time, but we didn't really see any simultaneous scenes. It was, oh, suddenly they're here telling somebody about how they got there instead of, yeah, following every character every second.
Also, did you know that Jedi could enter a form of hibernation and they use that when they travel through space? That was like a random thing that I don't know why that just like sparked up here. But like I feel like that was such a weird point to constantly emphasize. Like it gets talked about more than like lightsabers, it seems like. It's just like they're just like Thrawn's like, did you know that they can do this? Then Luke is like, okay, well, I'm gonna do this. I was just like, it just seems very random. Like,
I mean, I didn't notice it until you said it, but yeah, they did talk about it a lot.
Yeah. Again, I don't have a problem with that. It just is strange that like that got mentioned so much.
Yeah, you always need a fun fact.
Yeah.
That was the one we needed to get from this book.
Yeah. The guy says it comes up a lot in his other books. He just really likes forced hibernation. Like, okay.
It's his thing. Good to know.
Yeah. Cool power. Like, it makes sense. But like, again, it just seems weird how like emphasized it is.
Any themes stand out to you?
It's a bit on the nose. But there's kind of the theme of like alternate pasts, of like the what could have been. So the first one that we get in like a very big way is the Luke going into the cave on Dagobah and getting the vision from the skiff where the lightsaber gets pulled back and he doesn't get it and ends up falling in the Sarlacc pit, as like the alternate past where if Mara Jade had actually been on the skiff. And then similarly at the end towards the end we get a like what could have happened at Endor had Thrawn been in charge. And there's kind of like that idea of alternate pasts and how like one moment can like radically define like a person's journey. And I thought that was very interesting. And it's an interesting way to think about. I feel like it's a good way of like retconning characters into the story without like completely undoing everything that came before. Because it's not like we're not out here being like, oh, well, Thrawn was sick that day, so he couldn't make it. Like, and yeah, so I really liked that. And I think it's a cool theme, especially tying in with the idea of like Jedi and attachment and dwelling on things and like that side of it. Like you can very much dwell on the what could have been, which is kind of where we see Mara Jade. And then on the other end, you have the like living in the moment, trying to figure out how to solve today's problems of the Republic. So I think it's a cool dichotomy. I don't know if that's the right term, but that's what's coming to mind right now.
I think something that is coming to mind for me is how, I don't know, good and bad can be viewed differently depending on your view of things, or that evil people can do good things and good people can do bad things. With the Nagri. Is it the Nagri?
That sounds right.
All right, I'm going to say Nagri. With them being saved by Darth Vader and so deciding they're loyal to him, even though they don't have political loyalties necessarily. They're like, well, he's the one who did good by us, so we're on his side. And with Mara Jade being hurt by, I guess, the fallout of Luke's actions and deciding that he ruined everything and deserved to die for it, like just getting very different views of people and actions depending on how you're affected by them, and that I guess good and evil is a little more muddled sometimes in situations.
Yeah. And I think it kind of hits on the idea of like doing the right things for the wrong reasons or the wrong things for the right reasons. Of like and this kind of even hits on like Lando is kind of in this of like, is Lando a good person? Like love Lando, but like that's kind of the always unclear of like, and even like, Han is another great example of that, of like, is Han, it's definitely by this point, it seems like he's definitely on that like redeemed side of things, but like, but I feel like we get that vibe of even in doing the right things, like there's fallout, there's catastrophe that can happen to people. Like, there's the idea of, and this kind of gets, I think I'm remembering the Nagri thing correct, but like, it's because there was a fight, right? And like the ship fell into their planet and Vader came and helped, basically, right? Am I making that up?
That's right.
Maybe it was that. Um, and yeah, like that's kind of like the, oh, well, Vader's probably not doing a good thing, but like he's helping these people for what is probably a very selfish reason, being power. But yeah, I think that's a very interesting theme.
Anything else stand out to you or any quotes to share?
I don't specifically have any quotes that came to mind. Again, I really liked the one about like how Endor could have been different with Thrawn. And specifically because I feel like by that point it's earned that Thrawn could have made a difference. Kind of again going back to my question from the beginning of like, is Thrawn smart or is just everyone else dumb? Like at that point, like Thrawn has proven that he is smart and is capable, and it's not just, we're not just being told that, we've been shown against competent opponents that like that Thrawn can make these types of decisions. And so that one really struck me because it actually like was like, oh yeah, how would it have been different? Like I can actually like get behind that and get into that thought process versus it just being like, this person's a big deal because you told me. Yay. What about you? What do you think?
I mean, I shared my quotes already. I don't know. I think that's about it. I forgot to mention at the beginning of the episode that this is our second and final read of Classic Geek Summer. So what do you think makes this a geek classic? And is it a classic for you?
So I think that this is on its own. I don't know if I would say it was classic. This kind of ties in with the future question, but like I feel like Thrawn is, and Thrawn is classic because the character keeps coming back and clearly means something to a lot of people. That like Thrawn is an interesting villain. Like we again, like this is a character that was presumably made up by Zahn. I don't know if that's been confirmed, but like presumably made up by him, and then connected enough to be part of Rebels, and then now is coming into live action. Like I think that there is a reason people like Zahn, or people like what Zahn did with this character. And I really feel like it's classic because it has endured. Like, granted, like we're talking 91, right? Is that the published date? Yeah, 91. So like we're not talking that like Thrawn has endured ages or anything, but like as a character that was created 30 years ago and is still around and is still being like iterated on, like I think that really is a testament to the character being classic.
Yeah, I think it being the OG Thrawn trilogy, there's, I don't even know, millions of Star Wars books. Like there's so many. And this is one that gets frequently recommended by people. It's obviously one of the top tier Star Wars extra canonical
Mm-hmm.
media things. And yeah, like you said, he's a really great, interesting character. Um, I don't know if it's a classic for me, but I did enjoy it. I can see why people would like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely feel like it's hard. Like, again, like I feel like this is not supposed to be a complete story versus when we did Princess Bride. Like, clearly intended to be, this is the story, to the point that they even talk about attempting to write a sequel and just not getting anywhere. And I feel like this one very much feels, it feels much harder to judge it of like, again, is this book classic? I don't know if I'd go that far, but I also like haven't read the full trilogy. Like
I was also going to say, like, my thoughts may change after 2 more books.
And a whole other trilogy. And Rebels. And
so, do you have plans to read the rest of the Thrawn trilogy?
I'm definitely interested in. If not actually read, I definitely want to go and like look up kind of the synopsis of what happened. I feel like the Legends content is kind of in this weird place of like, is this just like really good fan fiction? Like, is that kind of where we're at? Like, because it's like it's with it no longer being like remotely connected to canon. And again, there kind of being questions about how canonical it was even before that. Is like, what is the actual, like, the point of reading it? And again, it kind of has like that cool vibe of, again, I feel like this might be why people enjoy fan fiction. Of it's like, here, these are cool stories that are well told with the characters that you know, and the characters that you tell about or that you like have been told about. There we go. And they're kind of be put in different situations and stuff like that. And I think that's, yeah, I think it's really cool. Again, like I said, I definitely have interest in the rest of the trilogy. Whether or not I'll actually like audiobook all 3 of them or something, I don't know. But I definitely am interested in more of what Zahn has done.
Yeah, I think I'd be interested to read the rest of the trilogy, see where it goes. You might have convinced me to check out the audiobook.
Yeah, again, I'll say audiobook was great. Deanna already had it, but it has the pew pews, it has the ship sounds. Like, there's definitely some like really cool stuff that they do with the production of it.
Like that. That's my kind of audiobook.
Yeah.
Do you have any predictions for what will happen in the rest of the trilogy?
So I will say I already knew some of the stuff that's going to happen with Mara Jade. So, I'd kind of come across some of that when I was doing, or some stuff was kind of coming up for like before the Force Awakens of like what stories could they pull from and stuff like that. So I already know a bit of that. I really want, I want to see Thrawn have to do something to help the good guys. Cause I want to, like, that's like the puzzle that I want to see Zahn tackle. Is like, how do you get Thrawn, who is in a lot of ways just a very neutral person, of like, he's on this side because he thinks it's going to be the winning side. And he thinks that it's a benefit to him. And I'd kind of like to see Thrawn be like, or not quite to the like, if everyone else is playing checkers, he has to play against himself, like, kind of thing. But like, I like to see that that type of, okay, Thrawn needs to help Luke escape something. Thrawn needs to like what is the threat have to be to have Thrawn again not become a rebel or a part of the Republic, but like to actually like help the good guys out of a situation. What do you think?
I don't know. I think I would like to see Thrawn get a major win. Because let's be honest, it is a Star Wars book. We know where this is all going. Um, the good guys tend to win.
Yeah.
But it is the Thrawn trilogy. And I'd like to see us build that tension a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, without going like too crazy, I'd like to see the middle book be the Empire Strikes Back of like it ends with like a very decisive win for Thrawn.
And I'd also like to see more of Leia's Jedi powers.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Love me some Leia.
Hard agree.
And because we just can't get enough Thrawn, do you think you will also consider checking out the new Thrawn trilogy?
Yeah, I kind of put that in the same camp of I'm very interested in more of what's happening with this character, and I put my desire there to maybe more so in can Ahsoka grab me with Thrawn. I think that has a much more likely impact to make me want to go and do an additional trilogy. But yeah, I'm definitely again I'm interested in this character, and I think Thrawn is very very intriguing. So I'm like less in a hurry for that again, unless Ahsoka just like blows me away with Thrawn. But
Any final thoughts on Heir to the Empire?
I said at the beginning, it's a fun introduction. I really enjoyed it as a way of getting to know Thrawn and getting to see a bit of this extended lore for Star Wars.
Yeah, I think if you're a Star Wars fan, there's going to be a lot of good Star Wars things in here. And it's a fun read.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. Our next book club will be announced on our Discord and social media, but it will be on September 28th.
Sounds good. We'll see. I'm excited. We'll go figure out what we're going to be doing for this last Classic Geek. Or, yeah, right?
No, it's fall, y'all.
Are we doing pre-spooks? Are you going to like give me the chills again?
Maybe. We'll save that for October. But if you have any cozy fall reads, feel free to recommend us some things. Thank you for joining us for our Heir to the Empire book club. We are First Geek 411 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Join our Discord server or shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Check out our Redbubble store, watch live on our Twitch, and find all our videos over on YouTube. You can find me at the Hoot and Howl on Twitter and Hoot and Howl Tales, TALES, on Instagram.
And you can find me as Humar Whittle on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads.
Read a book.